Welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we decrease tomorrow's divorce rate today by teaching singles and couples alike how to experience love on purpose and not by chance. I am your host, Edward L. Fairley, accompanied by my wonderful co-host, Michelle Larkin. Michelle, say hi to the people.
Hey, y'all.
All right, so today is going to be a very interesting topic. Before I go into what the topic is, though, I do want to share my agenda with this whole concept. Michelle and I, we always talk off the set here. So she said something last week, and before I do that, even before I go into that, don't forget your #9. So for those who are new to this, #9, what she's holding right now, it just means that you've had an aha moment, learned something that is truth, that is a paradigm shift in your thinking. And whenever you hear something that's an aha moment or that you like, just simply type #9 and share whatever it is that thought was that you learned, so that we'll know what other topics to go into more in depth in the future. So #9, where that number came from. 9 is the number of truth. The example that I always get is nine times any number. It doesn't matter what the number is, 9 times any number, whatever that answer is, if you add up the sum total of that answer and break it down to its simplest form, it will always end up being 9. And the reason why that's considered the number of truth is because you can't hide from the truth. No matter the circumstance, truth will always prevail. And the fact that if you multiply any number by 9 and you add the total sum up and break it down to its simplest form, it will always be 9. That is why 9 is considered the number of truth, because things that are truth, it doesn't matter the circumstance, it is what it is. From a science standpoint, when you were in school, you learned that there was law in theory. So the equivalent of truth would be basically law. That is what it is, the law of gravity. If you throw something up in the air, it's going to come down. So #9. So anytime you have an aha moment or something that you realize that you've been believing the opposite of, or again, just an aha moment, put your #9, share what that thing is, and we'll go from there. So there you go. She has her #9. So before I go into the actual topic, as I was stating earlier, Michelle and I, we talk off the air quite often, and I just wanted to share what my agenda is. And what I mean by my agenda is like the takeaways that I'm hoping come from this. Michelle, she always expresses, if you listen to the last few shows, that she likes the consistency of the show because it allows for people's mindset to transform, because it wasn't just by reading the information or experiencing the information through a game or anything of that nature that she started to shift her thought process or actually walk out what it is that I teach. It's not something that just happens overnight. And I was telling her that that's the reason why I'm intentional about bringing up truth and pretty much debunking people's thought processes and beliefs. Because contrary to popular belief, and I have to put this disclaimer out here before I say what I'm about to say, because some people are going to clutch their pearls. But I am absolutely in love with and adore Maya Angelou. Matter of fact, that is that is probably the only woman that my wife, when I speak about her, that she feels a little uneasy, almost to the point of jealousy, because she knows how much I adore this woman. And she's so mentally sexy to me. and I absolutely love her. And the reason why I had to stress that is because what I'm about to say is what would be meant for you to, or possibly would cause you to clutch your pearls, so to speak. So Maya Angelou has this statement that people adopt as truth, and it's just not truth. it at best is true, but it's not truth. And that statement is, when you know better, you do better. So because of that teaching, I think a lot of times we try to provide people with a lot of information because we want them to know better so that in turn they'll do better. But let's quickly debunk this statement, which in turn causes us to just share information in hopes to get people to do better. So the way that I'm going to debunk that is to say, okay, if people know better, they definitely, it doesn't necessarily cause them to do better. For example, I can speak to any person that smokes and ask them, do they know that it's detrimental to their health? They will immediately say, yes, I'm aware of that. So they know better in the sense that it's harmful to their health, yet they continue to smoke. That is them knowing better, but doing worse. Another example of that is if you were to catch a thief stealing, that thief is going to run. So that means that thief knows that they were doing the wrong thing. So they know better. Otherwise, they would not run because they would think that what they're doing is okay. So in turn, they would do better if knowing better makes you do better. People that have unprotected sex or commit adultery or anything of that nature, those people know better. Knowing better does not cause you to do better, but believing better will cause you to do better. So I can know that it's wrong to steal, but if I believe that that is the only way that I can eat and survive, I'm going to take those chances. I can know that smoking is killing me, but if I don't believe I can quit, or if I don't believe that I will be a victim of lung cancer, I will continue to tap into that temporary pleasure. But if my belief is not right, then my actions are going to dictate my beliefs are going to dictate my actions. And what's happening is we're teaching stuff that is good, or people teach stuff that is right and helpful to allow people to know better. But if they don't believe better, they're not going to change their actions. So that's why I consistently attack your beliefs by sharing. This is a perfect example of how what you adopt as truth is not necessarily truth. And I have evidence to back that up. So with this podcast, I want to consistently provide you with truth, so much so that you start to shift your belief system so that you walk in a manner that you are walking in love. So I will consistently share and challenge your beliefs so that I can slowly transition your belief system so that you can walk in and then ultimately experience love on purpose as opposed to by chance. So that is definitely my, see your hashtag now, that is definitely my intention. That is definitely my plan when I go through these podcasts and these meetups, so that we can consistently renew your mind and your thinking and ultimately tap into your beliefs so that you can start walking this stuff out in power. So with that being said, let's get into this topic. Another topic inspired by Michelle.
Well, can I just piggyback on what you said in the opening?
Yeah, of course.
So
good.
When you said when you know better, you do better is a pseudo truth, right? So it's a true statement, but it's predicated by being exposed to options, right?
You're breaking up.
So it's predicated by being exposed to options. Make sense?
Say again.
So when you know better, you do better, but that's somewhat predicated on being exposed to options. I think that's part of what Maya was trying to allude to, was when you're doing something and without any knowledge or any accountability or any challenging of your perception, you tend to continue to override and do what you want to do. But when somebody challenges you and holds you accountable and exposes you to a different way, then you have the option as you said, to behave better, because now somebody's challenged you at your belief level, right? Because it does impact your actions. So I think one of the things I think is so cool about this project is consistent exposure to thought challenging conversations, right? That set this tone for changing our belief system, which is what you said. And the only thing I was adding was like, it's the exposure that's really powerful. And also, from my own experience, it's not a one-time conversation. So this is the podcast being a series allows the reinforcement, the ability to explore and challenge and be challenged. So this journey is really something I've enjoyed for the past 5, and I know we're gonna have fun tonight because this subject kept us online for like another hour after last week, because I was like, what about? So I'm gonna let you carry on that conversation.
Okay, perfect. So, not to mention, to piggyback off what you stated, it's going to be layers upon layers, and you'll hear the same thing different ways, and sometimes the way that you heard it the initial time didn't register. So it's typically, or sometimes, that one statement that could literally change your life. So the consistency definitely helps for it to penetrate your beliefs. And by you saying it out loud, I can see her, and I love to defend her. So I'm glad that you brought it in that statement, or the way that you brought it. But I could see her saying, or even meaning, that when you know better, from a sense of understanding who you are, for example, which in turn is a belief. Because if I believe that I'm better than the situation, that in turn will transition into my actions walking that out.
Because Maya's conversation about knowing comes from that place. So when she says no, she's talking about knowing. You know what I mean? Not just
yeah.
And
in her
when
being.
you know better and hear,
Yeah,
like
that's good.
Your belief system, then yeah, you can do better. But knowing, and even knowing love, right? So we're talking about no love, but knowing love is different than knowing love.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you and I have had conversations where I'm like, I think it's on you, it's not in you yet. Like you know it. It just hasn't pierced.
Penetrated.
So yeah, that's good. Spirit. That's really good. See, Maya Angelou, she got me worked up just thinking about it. I love that woman. All right. So this is the controversial. I don't think it's controversial to us anymore. But
it got me all worked up. I was all worked up.
She got extremely worked up, and I'll tell you what that story is in a moment. But let's start with what the topic is, or the title of today's show is. The title is Insecurities Disguised as Love Gestures. I'm going to say that again. Insecurities disguised as love gestures. There are so many things that look like love.
Amen.
And actually bear the same fruit that love would cause you to bear. But the intent behind it makes it not love, or not loving, or even puts a person in a bad predicament. So I'm going to give a few. Well, actually, let's go ahead and start it with how it was presented to her, to where she was like, what in the world are you talking about? So just take this journey with me. That's how I'm going to present it. Take this journey with me. You are a person that is, for lack of a better term, a jack of all trades. You can do everything. You can cook, you can clean, you can maintenance the vehicle, you can maintenance the lawn, you can dry clothes, iron, you can do pretty much everything. And because you absolutely love your partner, your wife, the person that you are in a relationship, your husband, whomever your partner is, you love them so much that you won't let them lift a finger. You do everything for them because you love them just so much. So out of your loving heart, you do everything for your mate. You take care of the bills. You are the provider. You're domesticated. You're cleaning. You're cooking. You're ironing clothes. You are just doing it all. Some people would say you're doing the most. But there comes a day where, unfortunately, you are put in a predicament where you have no ability to do those things again. Maybe you got paralyzed. Maybe there was an accident. Maybe you literally died. Maybe you left that loving spouse in some way, shape, or form. And now you've put them in a predicament where they cannot do those things themselves. Is that a predicament that you would want your mate to be in? That you have provided them with so much that you've enabled them to where they can't do for themselves? That is, she doesn't like the way that I set that up, but that is basically where I'm going.
That's why we got all worked up, because that is way over the top left. Too much.
Go ahead. Take the mic. Go.
Too much, because you took it to the I'm just laying on the couch eating bonbons all day, waiting for you to feed me. Like, no, But I do like being catered to. So, just saying.
So, there are people who are attempting to be loving, and I get it. But as you stated, it is an extremity for you to be able, or to be in an accident to where you cannot do anymore. And if I will do, this is where this conversation, this is how I was presented to her. I will do any and everything for my wife as long as I know she can do it for herself. I have to first see her do it or teach her how to do it before I will do it for her. This is my job as a spouse, and I think everyone's job as a spouse is to make their spouse as independent of them as possible. Now, I get a lot of pushback when I share this. You know why? Because people like to feel needed. But the danger in feeling needed is that you will be needed if you're gone. So why not equip your spouse or the person that you love so that they're not scrambling looking for somebody to immediately replace you because
Amen.
You left them ill-equipped in their daily routine, whether it be financially, whether it be cooking. I see grown women and men, going back to these stereotypes, that their spouses might have gone for a week and they haven't had a home cooked meal for a whole week because my wife has been gone. And it's like, you grown and you can't eat? Or now the whites are pink because you didn't know to separate the clothes and you needed some clothes washed, so you didn't combine everything together because you were not taught how to separate clothes and wash clothes. My children, I treat them the exact same way. The reality is I am ultimately going to die, preferably before everybody else. But I definitely don't want my wife or my children scrambling to find a quick replacement because I've altered their life so drastically because I prevented them from knowing how to do what it is that I can do. I try my best to share my strengths with my wife so that she can take care of herself. And she does the same for me, whether that's directly or indirectly, because whenever it's something that she knows how to do that I struggle at, I ask her, how do you do that? So I teach my children, and people should always be well-rounded people anyway, and how to do everything so that they're not desperate in trying to find someone to help them. So I'm going to stop with that and see what Michelle has to say before I go into other examples of how insecurities are disguised as love gestures.
Well, let me tell you why I got so offended at first. Because, and it doesn't offend me right now, I'm being overly dramatic, but it used to really, really get at me. Like, why do I need you if you're not going to contribute or support, or, you're going to wait to make sure I can open the door before you open the door. Like, what? Like, no. So, but at the same time, what it struck at, the nerve that it struck at for me was the expectation that love manifested as codependence, right? So there was an expectation that if you love me, then you'll depend on me, or I can be dependent on, or and your complete opposite of that is, if I love you, then you don't need me. And I challenged my whole, like, what you mean, if I love you, I don't need you, then why do I love you? Like, that's where I was. Isn't love need? So
no.
So I'm gonna let you deal. I'm gonna let you deal with that the way you dealt it with me. But that's where I was. Isn't love very closely linked to need?
Got it. So yeah, and that's what I mean by insecurities. Like, people prevent themselves from sharing or doing certain things so that they can feel needed. Like that's an insecurity, period. So no matter how you slice it, if you're withholding something from people so that you can feel needed by people, that is an insecurity that you need to be liberated from. But I go the extreme because extremes are realities. And I'm like, you love your spouse so much that you would put them in, would you want them to really be in a predicament where they actually are trying to hurry up and find another husband or hurry up and find another wife just because you've left them in a predicament where they feel like they can't do? I always think future. I never think right now. So even this example, the podcast, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
You said, wouldn't you want somebody, you don't want to put somebody in a situation where they would have to go run and find another husband or wife after you go, right? But in this space, in this time, for I think people are running to find, they think that somebody's going to run and find, so they have to do this. If I don't make you dependent on me, then you're going to go find somebody else right away. So never mind, wait till I die. You're going to go find somebody right now.
We're going right back. I'm glad that you took it there, because you're going right back to insecurity. That's feeling I'm not enough.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, but you're exactly right on the thought process behind why it's being done. And that's what I want to get to as we unpack different versions of this whole scenario. There's people that are doing things that, again, it's supposed to show love or an expression of love, but the actual root of it is actually an insecurity that you're struggling with. I want my wife to be independent of me. I'm empowering her to do so. And I personally believe that she's really going to appreciate me more that I've empowered her. She might hate it now. I have a great story in reference to that. Like when I remember we had one car that was working, or one of her cars was about to break down. I always drove a stick shift. She didn't know how to drive a stick shift, so she always tried to avoid learning. You know that's not gonna ride with me. So she kept on. She kept on prolonging it, and I made her learn how to drive a stick. And do you know how I made her drive a stick? Those who are stick shift drivers would appreciate this. I literally took my wife to this school that has a real high incline hill to leave the school. I drove her to that parking lot, and I made her drive all the way up the hill and just do seesaw with the clutch. And that's all we did for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and she's terrified. Anyone who knows about driving a stick shift, once you let go of the brake, the vehicle begins to roll backward. So she's scared. She's almost in tears.
Torture.
But my thought process is, if I can get you to seesaw, roll up, catch yourself, come off the clutch, roll back and forth like that, you can do everything else is easy. Coming off the clutch is the hardest thing for anybody that's learning how to do a stick. Anything else is simple. Said if we master this, you're going to be fine. So I made her do the seesaw over and over again. I mean, like I said, your stomach drops. I've literally seen people pull the emergency brake off and up and just get out of the car if they were stuck at a red light or something like that. And there's cars behind them. Oh my goodness! I've literally seen people just.
I completely can relate.
Like, yo, I'm not doing it. So my wife, I had her do that over and over again, and she hated me that day. And there's plenty of times where my wife hates me when I take a stand and make her learn how to do something. She does not like to be pushed, but I'm determined. Like I said, I don't want her to have to feel like she needs anyone. And that's not saying that it's a bad thing to need anyone or to ask for help. But if I can prevent you from having to do that, I'm going to do it. So the following week, because her car ultimately broke down and she had to use my vehicle back and forth commute, I had to stick shift. Her first week of driving, she ends up on this incline and traffic was there. She's in the middle of the incline, Campusella Bridge for those who are in Virginia. And she's in the middle of the incline of Campusella Bridge, whole bunch of cars behind her at a complete stop. And she had that whole Danielson wax on, wax off memory type situation going on, and called me that same day and told me how she was so proud of herself, but scared because she was able to come off of her clutch and drive off on that Campusella Bridge because I put her through the worst case scenario when it came to stick shift driving. And it is imperative that we equip our spouses, if we love them, for when we're gone. And that could be, as I stated earlier, a vacation from your job or whatever. Now they can't eat a home-cooked meal because you haven't taught them how to do a basic home-cooked meal. They can't have clean clothes because you haven't taught them how to separate clothes. That's kind of ridiculous. But people actually literally find spouses for those type of things because we also have bought into that's a woman's job. That's a man's job. So that's stuff that we debunked on the first show. If you haven't gotten that lesson, go back to shows 1 and 2. So these are the things that we are unpacking. Another example of insecurities disguised as love gestures. Have you ever heard someone say this, or have you been the one to says this? It's not that I don't trust you, I just know how men are. Or it's not that I don't trust you, I just know how women are. Go ahead. I see you. Go ahead, Michelle. I see your face.
If somebody says that to you, that's like a whole bunch of other problems. We probably need to have some other conversations.
That's the whole point of this conversation. That's typically shared to show that I'm protective. I love you. It's not that I don't trust you. I just know how men are. It's not that I don't trust you. I just know how women are. But if you trust your mate, it doesn't matter how male or female is because your mate would have to contribute to the action in order for them to move forward. That is clearly either you're insecure or there's another conversation that needs to be had because you don't trust your mate, period. There's no need for that type of statement.
You're not seeing me. If you're lumping me in, you're not seeing me.
Oh, yeah. So, but that statement in itself is typically a way to try to not lump you in by saying it's them. It's not that I don't trust you, it's them that I have a problem with. But you are the person that would actually have to contribute in that in order for it to even be a thing. So that there's an indirect insecurity in that statement. It's not that I don't trust you, I just know how men are. It's not that I don't trust you, I just know how women are. If you know how your mate is, then you don't have to worry about that type of situation, period. So let's address what the real issue is. That's not love. That's not even protection. That is you having insecurities and not enough self-esteem.
Actually, at its root, it's self-defense.
I see Ms. Henry heard it and said it. First of all, I'm glad that you said that, Ms. Henry. Everything that I'm saying, I've been a victim of it. if I talk about anything on this show, and again, going back to the original show, this is from me investigating myself to come to these truths so that I can teach you all to try to prevent you from going through all the crap that I've been through and I've done. So yeah, he said it was in his much younger years pre-marriage. But yes, it's an insecurity that you have, and let's go ahead and go off. Let's build on that. This is another thing. People that get upset when their spouse or their mate gets hit on. Another, like I'm upset. The man hit on you. First and foremost,
why not? Like, why are you with somebody that won't get hit on? Like, what?
Thank you. That's the like, first thing.
You hit on
the minute that you're with someone that no one is interested in being with is a minute that you need to be concerned about who you're with. Let's start with that. like if your mate never gets hit on, you might wonder why you are with them. The last thing you get upset with,
insecurity, because they pick somebody
exactly.
that nobody would.
We're back to thinking that we could be replaced by somebody else. So I want to act like, no, I love you. I don't like all these men hitting on you. Like, so there's one or two things now, because on the flip side of that, there's some people that entertain that. So that's another conversation. Now you need to say why you don't trust them and why you're concerned that when they go ahead and hit on your spouse that they would respond to it. So that's twofold. You got two conversations that you might need to have. One is your insecurities and your self-esteem. Two, if they're not getting hit on, that's when we need to shift our thought process. Why there's not anyone that's interested in
nobody ever hits on you.
Like nobody hits on your mate, then there's a problem. Whether it be the way that they look or the way that they carry themselves, people aren't interested in them. You got a problem in itself. I don't want to be in a predicament where I'm with my wife and nobody's ever interested in her. That's a compliment to me, the person that she has chosen, and vice versa, the person that he has chosen. You don't think of her
as property, though. You don't think of her as a possession, something that you have to put a fence around and put your stamp on and say mine. Like, that's not how you view your relationship.
Exactly. I mean, I don't look at her as property, but I definitely look at her as mine. So when you compliment on her, you compliment me on my choices and who I'm with and who has chosen me. Like that, I never grasped. Well, I have understood the concept because again, it comes to insecurity. So we do these things as if it's being loving, but in actuality, it's actually a lack of love for ourselves, a lack of confidence in what we have to offer. And if you're concerned about that, you need to work on what you're lacking so that you won't be easily replaced. So I mean, it's great to feel needed, but it's detrimental to be needed. So, and I see you pondering that thought. So what I mean by that, Michelle, is
I'm writing.
Okay. I'm writing. In death, divorce, or you being paralyzed because of a simple accident, you not being able to be who you were could put that person in a really, really bad predicament or situation. What's another example? Oh, I love her, so I don't want to hurt her feelings about how she performs in the bedroom. I love him, so I don't want to comment on how he performs or his lack of performance in the bedroom. Like I
love him, so I say yes to everything in the bedroom is equally as insecure. Or
that's true,
right? So or love her that I just said whatever means it's the same. I'm avoiding conflict because I'm afraid of whatever the insecurity is.
Exactly. Well, typically people avoid conflict because, for one, they don't feel that they can defend themselves or their statement. Two, they're concerned that they'll lose that person, which again goes back to not feeling like you're enough. So I don't want to hurt their feelings because that will prevent me from having them or getting what I want from them in the future, which goes back to your insecurities, not feeling like you have enough to be, do, or have what it is that you need in your existence. So in a nutshell, open mouths don't get fed. I think you meant closed mouths, but I understand what you're saying. I follow you, Mr. Henry. But yes, so yeah, if you are holding stuff in, that's not love. You might be in the action, might be trying to be considerate, but in the end, you're being inconsiderate of yourself, which means you don't love yourself if you're not even addressing the issue. Not to mention, especially from a sexual, like sex. Oh my gosh. In the bedroom, I want to be in a place where I am enjoying myself. I am not going to consistently allow it to suck in the bedroom to accommodate how you feel in the bedroom. That's just not going to happen.
But the flip side of that is, isn't it interesting for people who can communicate horizontally and be in a Zen moment and have nirvana experiences, yet can't have that same intimacy vertically? Like they have chemistry all day. Like they can get it in, but just not connecting intellectually.
Well,
and
actually,
I mean, that's love. It must be love because we just keep falling into it.
Well, even that statement in itself, like that's typically the beginning of a relationship anyway. That because it's based off or predicated on the physical aspect of what's going on. But if you cannot connect in a deeper level, that sex being good is not going to last. But we're going to have a conversation about that on a whole. We're going to do a whole sex. We're going to do a whole sex show. Oh my goodness, yeah.
We can milk that for a long time.
Oh, can I?
Wait a minute. It's not enough. It's not enough. Then you wake up like, what the heck have I been doing?
In the end, like, as far as this topic is concerned, your actions could definitely be received as loving or looked upon as loving. But if the intent behind the action is not loving, it's not love. A good example I give is, say I come home, or my wife comes home and she sees a couple dozen roses, several cards, and a cooked meal. And she's like, oh, babe, thank you. That's so nice. And my response to that is, now you know you need to take care of me tonight. Everything that I did up until that statement, she's doing a cut sign. It ruins the whole presentation. And that's because the core of why I did it was selfish. And that is why the action itself is not necessarily representation of what love is. It can definitely be based off of an insecurity. So I want us to be mindful of why we do what it is that we do. Because love, as I stated on the first few episodes, is a one-way street. Now, the interesting thing about that is when you're doing things out of love, and I mean everything towards your mate out of love, literally in the bedroom out of love. And again, when I stated it, it's a one-way street. So I'm giving, not so that I can receive. I'm giving and giving and giving without the thought process of me receiving pleasure or anything in return. It's to give in a manner that I'm really pleasing my mate, which in turn will make them want to do the same thing for you or inspire them to do the same thing for you. So you're going to indirectly get what you want in the first place. That makes for a wonderful experience in the bedroom, because now you two are competing to make sure that the other person is better. I mean, literally battling. Now I'm getting visual, so I need to move on this topic because we be battling just to try to express love to each other, and even better than one another. It becomes a competition to where I really know I love you. I want you to see that I love you, and vice versa. Yes. Go ahead.
Even outside of the bedroom, that notion of giving is fulfilling in and of itself. Like when you give from a space of that knowing that we were talking about, Maya Angelou's knowing, like when I know me and I know I've chosen to love you, not because of what you're giving to me, but because I choose to love you, I can give and not have any expectations, right? Like you can give and feel fulfilled in the giving, and trusting that the other person feels the same way. That is like, it's a new experience for me. I have to admit,
yeah. It's a new experience for a lot of people. That's why we're doing this.
The trust,
love is void expectation. Love is void. Love is void expectation. There's no expectations in love. The only expectations is that the person receives the fact that you're trying to articulate love to them, whether it be physically or.
We were talking across each other, so I apologize.
Go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I had a moment. One of the things I just learned or experienced, when the person that is the object of your affection is solely like you just enjoy giving and being that for them, it actually jumpstarts so many other areas of your life that you are not so concerned with their failures or shortcomings. Yeah. It's easier to accept them because, again, you're accepting yourself too, but like there's just joy. When you just have this person who is the source of joy for you, it's so much easier to be joyful in other areas. Like they're just an excuse for you to be happy.
Yeah, most certainly. Yeah,
and then the giving is painless, right? Like it's just part. Like of course I want to give to you. Of course I want to give to you.
Exactly. Well, it's an expression of what you have going on inside of you about that person that just has to be let out in some way, shape, or form so that they can understand.
It back to you. I think that's what I'm really experiencing in a different way is, like you said, your intent. Being real clear about your intent and that it is to purely give and enjoy and appreciate this person. Coming from that space tends to bring it back to you.
But I think what people miss is when you genuinely give, that in itself is fulfilling.
It is.
That's the thing. We think for some, well, it's not a strange reason. It's because
we're tactile. We need to prove it, touch it, feel it, see it. And sometimes love doesn't come that way. So we do this stuff like this insecurity stuff.
But the thing is, it's all right. So how do I put this? An immediate outcome of a bad habit typically feels good immediately, but the ultimate outcome feels bad. But the immediate outcome of a good habit is actually non-existent. It's usually something that you get in the long term, and we crave immediate responses, and that's just not how it is for things that are necessarily good or even worth having. So if you think about it, all bad habits give you an immediate sensation, whether it be bad food, sex, anything. It's an immediate response. But things that are worth having, they take a lot more work before you're going to see receive the harvest of that. So it's not that appealing. I see a #9. It's not that appealing to where we go immediately towards that immediate fixation, but the long-term outcome of that is almost always bad. So that's where the problem
just opened up that statement. Love is patient.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
Unpack. Love is patient.
Yeah, because you don't have, if you're not there long enough, you don't even have evidence that it's real. So you have to be around to know that love is patience or love is kind and all those other fruits that come from real and actual genuine love. But we definitely have to get to a point where we're mindful of our actions that we assume are loving and ask where that's coming from. Remember last week as we were talking, I brought up the fact that my daughter, she questioned why I didn't do something that she wanted to have done. But she and most other people don't question the people that want to do what you want done. So what I'm asking, like, we never question the motive behind a person that aligns with what we want. We only question the people, the motive behind the people that don't align with what we want. Like, why you don't want me to get my hair done like that, or why you don't want, because it's something that we want. But we never say, well, why you agree with me? We don't do that. And the motive of the person that agrees with you could be just as bad or even worse than a person that doesn't agree with you. So what I'm asking in this statement is for you to question your motives behind your actions to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure, or that you're not presenting an insecurity as a love gesture and missing out on an opportunity to really address something that you really have deep rooted in you that is really a problem that has to be addressed or talked about. And I see your eyes and your head is going. So what are you thinking right now, Michelle?
No, the triggers and just the triggers.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to be patient. But I wanted to ask you to explain.
You better put Corinthians 13 in there. I wasn't gonna go there, but that's exactly where I was pulling from, Charity.
But what I wanted to ask you to address was this motive notion. And I'm using myself as an example because we went through this, is having that first conversation about the independence. Like when you were talking about your wife, I want her to be able to be independent. It hit me at the space of me wanting to connect need to love. But when you are asking us to explore our own motives, right? If our filter is cloudy, right? If I'm thinking that need is linked to love and my motives are to be needed, I think I'm doing the right thing. So how do we reframe that to get to the root of our motives? How do we get to what our real motive?
All right, so the answer to that is one simple yet powerful word: why. When you come to these conclusions, ask yourself, why? Why did I want to do that? Or why do I think that? And be honest with yourself. Like, that why comes from a lot of places. And the thing about it is, and I'm confident in saying most people don't know themselves. Most people don't know themselves. I deal with adults and children.
Why? They don't know
all day. They think they're thinking, but they're not thinking. They're doing things, and they're also parroting things that they hear or they just see, not understanding the why behind their actions. We've already had the conversation about
do the work.
Oh yeah, you definitely need to do the work, because when you get to the root of a lot of your beliefs, which we talked about earlier, you'll find that, like, you probably didn't even mean to adopt that belief. Like, where the heck did that mess come from? Like, I can't even believe I thought that, or I believe that now that I'm an adult and I'm questioning that. Go ahead.
So let me echo that for you, Flake. So I used to believe that to be provided for and protected was an expression of love. Right?
You said to be provided for and protected?
To be provided for and protected was an expression of love. So if you didn't provide for me in some way, I don't know, that could be anything from dinner to rent. And I never got that, but anyway, so but it could be anything from dinner to rent or protected, which means, right? So I'm asking you, from this knowing myself and I know we had to shift through this, but if I need to feel protected, there's a part of me that has to play damsel in distress to elicit that feeling of protection to make sure that you love me. So at the root of this, what do we do with the need to really constantly be reminded or reinforced or you know what I'm saying? Like constantly be told that we're loved. Do you know what I mean? Like some of these behaviors are to get constant reaffirmation.
Yeah.
And I think
they're
that
oftentimes test. There's a lot of people that are
testing.
testing.
Like how do we get past that? How do we stop needing the test?
Well, the way is to start loving yourself. That's the first way. So the first way is to start loving yourself, which is a process in itself. Again, understanding why you feel the way that you feel, think the way that you think. Pretty much dating yourself so that you understand yourself better to the point where you fall in love with yourself so much so that you would be happy with being by yourself. Now, everything that you just stated was if you're looking for that from another person, that means you lack in that area. Plain and simple. When you're looking for someone for something, it's because you lack that something. If you had it, you wouldn't be looking for somebody else to give it to you.
I can protect myself. I guess I could protect myself.
Exactly. So what is like again, a paradigm shift in your thought process. Like, what do you protect? What do you need protection from is the first thing. Secondly, can you do it yourself?
Protect it.
No, but think again, going back to
a woman or whatever the heck it is. Think like a woman.
Going back to the whole parroting thing. What you did was you just reiterated what you were taught. Men are the providers. Men are the protectors. So now this is something that you're looking for in a man. But what I need, let's analyze that statement. If the male is the provider and the male is the protector, so as a single woman, you have no protection and you can't eat and provide for yourself. Logically, that makes absolutely no sense. So no, you really need
acting like a man. That's what they say, is that we're acting like a man.
Exactly. So now they're either scaring you from being a provider for yourself, making you feel bad because you could take care of yourself, or they're telling you to look for a man so that you can be complete in having that for yourself. So what happens to the person that's single? Now, again, you cannot eat. Or for the quote unquote man that doesn't do a woman's job. Like, these things are so ridiculous in where they come from. I'm gonna give you an example to bring home what I was saying in reference to your statement. So you know that I mentor young men 11 through 18 years of age. So what I did was it was a few weeks ago, I had two big sticky note poster boards up, and on one side I put a boy as the top title. On the other sticky note, I put man. And I asked them to describe the characteristics of a boy. Pretty much every characteristic that they gave for the boy was pretty negative, immature, and like the 90% of what was shared was bad about the boy. So then I transitioned over to man, and I put it in pretty much all of the things that they had on that side was positive. So I asked them, why could they not be the things that a man was as a boy? And they're like their minds kind of stopped. They were like, well, it actually can. And I'm like, my point exactly. But if this is the list of what you have as a boy, that means you're walking in this because that's your belief of what a boy does. And what's happening is people are walking around in beliefs of what things are, aspiring to be something that they want to be once they finally get what they told they need in order to be what they want to be. And that is constantly chasing. Exactly. So that is where the problem lies. You need to, for one, figure out what your list is of things about yourself or who you aspire to be, and then start transitioning to where you aspire to be before the mate, before the man, so that you can get to that place of loving yourself. And oftentimes I see that too when people are dating. They're like sizing the guy or the woman up and thinking, well, you can't do this. And there's a whole bunch of things that they can't even do. Like, how you have the nerve to say that that person can't provide you with what you need, and when you can't provide you with what you need. And that's where that's why I get so offended when people make the statements of, where's your other half? First of all, I'm all me. I'm whole me. My wife is her whole self wherever she is at the moment that you ask me where my other half is. And she will never complete me. She compliments me in being with me. She's a very, very complimentive partner, but she definitely does not complete me by any means. If my wife was to leave me through death or divorce, I'm going to be as whole Eddie as I am with my wife. So I want my wife to be a holistic woman. And I can't stress how important it is and imperative from a loving standpoint it is for you to make your spouse or your mate as independent of you as possible. But you cannot get to the point where you will want to do that until you feel enough in yourself. When you start loving yourself, you won't be worried about them leaving because you provided them with how to fish. And you will stop giving them fish so they can keep coming back to you. And then you might get fish made for you because you helped them fish on their own. So like, it's so many people that get frustrated. Oh my goodness, my wife, she's a good example of this. Frustrated that, oh, well, I got to get the kids up early because I got to get Ezra dressed. And I'm like, well, did you think of teaching him how to get dressed? So your frustration is because you won't take the time. Again, remember we said we look for that feeling in the beginning. And that's why we shy away from what is needed for the future. So instead of me going ahead and getting frustrated and taking the time out to teach my son how to get dressed or put his shoes on, I got to move. So let me go ahead and put him up so I can speed up but what you're doing is preventing him from learning. Now you're frustrated and stressed out because I got to get up earlier because I got to do this. Now you're complaining about stuff you're creating yourself because you won't take the time to equip someone and empower them to be something that you want. And you hear that all the time. I got to go home. I got to cook. I got to clean. I got to help the kids with the homework. I got to do this. And I already worked. But did you empower those people to do what it is that you're complaining about to relieve you of all the stress that you had? No, you didn't, because you want to feel needed. You want to feel loved. So your frustration and your stress is just a product of the things that you won't take the time to empower people to do. I just gave somebody probably 2 hours to themselves of peace if they just sat down and did the uncomfortable stuff and teaching and helping somebody to do what it is that you do so that you can have a break. You're welcome.
And scene. And scene. Oh my God. So I want to ask you a follow-up question to that. So what you're asking people to do, and I as a strategist and what I do professionally, is create capacity, right? So what you're asking them to do is think strategically about what's going on around them and find efficiencies and create the capacity and space in their life to do more of what they want. But I think that underlying this theory that you kind of laid out is a different understanding of partnership, right? So these things that we're talking about, like insecurities masquerading as, love, which are the premise for partnership, because all these insecurities that we're projecting are trying to build this partnership, which is what we think a relationship is. So I want to know what is the end game of a pairing? Maybe that's a better word, because if two whole people are coming together, there's a pairing, and then there's some attributes to that which are different from what we perceive, quote, marriage, relationship, partnership to be, because partnership requires this give and take or exchange on some level. So I'm interested to hear what are your underlying drivers for the pairing, or what should we be thinking about when we're looking for the pairing.
I need you to elaborate. I want to answer you accurately. I'm not following the question.
Okay, so my insecurities tend to be the way I project how I feel to try to attract or keep the partner, right?
Okay.
Because need is a big deal. So my insecurities, I'm putting them out there to make sure that I'm needed, or to make sure that somebody constantly is telling me that I need you, I love you, I want you. So,
Yeah.
but the way that you're describing, being more efficient and teaching people how to be independent and teaching them to fish comes from a different understanding of what pairing looks like. Like, you're not coming at it from being needed. You're coming at it as two whole people who are pairing. And I guess what I'm saying is, what should be the driver for that pairing? Like, why are we coming together? So that I can check myself. So I can know I'm coming to this correctly.
So just to make sure I'm receiving this right, why would you take this approach to your pairing? Or again, I want to answer you accurately. Why would you take that approach?
I think that partnership, the way we understand it generally in society, is I have to give to you to get back, or we're coming together for a common goal. But loving unconditionally doesn't necessarily require that. So what is the root of your pairing? Was it to have children? Was it to build a life? What is your common goal? Like, why did you get married? Why did you get together? How did you make sure that that was the right thing?
Oh, well, first of all, I can't explain why, but ever since I was young, I wanted to be married. I wanted to be married, and I wanted 3 children, interestingly enough. So much so that a lot of, like, when I was in elementary school and middle school, my girlfriends literally told me I was too serious. But at the same token, it's interesting, like, because I literally talk to people that are dating, and I ask them, like, so can you see yourself marrying him, or can you see yourself marrying her? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so why are you wasting your time with a person that you can't even see yourself with in the ultimate scheme of things, the goal of the thing? It makes absolutely no sense. Like, so that's just by default how my mind works. So as I'm interacting and I'm dating said person, my thought process is, how can I see myself marrying them? Otherwise, I'm not even wasting my time. And it wasn't so I cannot see myself marrying them. So because of what they could do for me, because I was raised in a manner that I had to do everything for me. So I already came, like, I'll give you another example of that, where I literally had to consider my wife's feelings or possible thoughts and possible insecurities. There was a time where my wife, she got pneumonia, and it was really bad. This is probably about 3 years ago. She got pneumonia, and it got so bad that it seeped into her bloodstream. And my wife's diabetic, so everything was off the charts, and it was not looking good at all. And she always would ask when I would visit her in the hospital, especially when she started healing, well, you need anything or whatever? And I'm like, no. Matter of fact, the house it had a better flow to it.
Everything was just moving.
Yeah, it had a better flow and a rhythm to it when she was in the hospital. And I had to be like, I literally had to step out myself, like, how does that make her feel, to kind of see that, like, yo,
I don't need you.
If you're like, exactly, I don't need you. But at the same token, what I need you to understand is, because this is the takeaway I took, for those who drive to New Jersey, I took 95 instead of going to 13. I took a long route so that you can get this message here. It gave her peace, one, to see that the stuff that she needed or she was doing at home was not necessary in order for us to be sustained or fine. And two, it helps her realize, and I'm going to answer you as to why it's important to do something like that. It helps you realize that you're wanted and not needed.
There you go.
It is better to feel wanted than to needed, to feel needed. So if I am only there because I need you, like that's the difference between like I'd rather be with someone while I'm broke and I'm not successful before I make it to success, because now I don't know if they really, really want me or love me. So if I equip you to do everything on your own and you still choose me, you want me. You understand what I'm saying? Again, there is so much power in love. There's so much power and so much that you can take away from knowing that you're loved. If they don't know everything about you, you don't really know you're loved. If they can live without you and they don't know it, you don't really know that you're loved. But if I give you everything for you to do on your own and you stay, you know you're loved. So I guess that would be my motive, not to mention to know in life that when I die, I have equipped them, and I promise you they will appreciate it.
You left a legacy. You are investing in legacy. And
Most
that
certainly.
is love. That is what love does.
So, yes. So equipping, that would be my motive. For one, I'm a teacher at heart. I can't help it. I know how to simplify the complex when I understand it. So I definitely teach my wife and my children and anyone else that is in my circle how to fend for themselves so that they don't need anyone. And I know that it's hard to receive, not feeling needed, but at the same token, it's hard to be the person that's getting taken advantage of because you are needed. What you don't know, is very expensive. It's so many people that are getting taken or being abused or whatever because of what they don't know. So I don't want my wife and my children to be in a predicament where, because they don't know, they're in a worse or in a bad situation that they don't have to be in. So I try to equip them as much as I can. Not to mention, honestly, what motivates me is I know that I have an expiration date, that I don't know what it is. So when I do these teachings, it's always recorded. If I do a speaking engagement and I do it for free, it's always recorded so that I know that when I die, it's still me raising my children, because they have some kind of recording that they can get dad's perspective on what that topic is, as opposed to having to get it from the television, their teachers, or even family members that I'm not necessarily sure I trust their thought process in teaching my children on certain topics. So that is another motive behind why I definitely empower my wife and my children to be self-sufficient.
I would say my takeaway has been in my own journey on this topic with you personally. Number one, that jarring of not needing to be needed is like ripping off a Band-Aid. It's in the air that hits the wound. Like, I don't have to be needed. Like, at first, I don't have to be needed, and then I don't have to be needed. I don't have to be. I don't have to be needed. Like,
exactly.
It's an evolution. It's like a what? Oh,
Yeah.
And you see all of these emotions go across my face in conversation with you. But I think what I asked and what you answered and what I've really gotten out of this conversation again is that really we have to love on purpose. And that on purpose, meaning how is that aligned with who I am? You're a teacher by nature. And so your family benefits from that because you're investing in their legacy. And lots of us have lots of different purposes. I mean, I am a connector. I am a mentor and a motivator. So my children benefit from that because I've lived on purpose, my purpose through that. And it could be artists, it could be music, but that purpose ought to be a part of your loving.
Yeah.
It allows for you to not have to require such a big response because it's part of your purpose.
So I mean, that's what we say at the beginning of the show. Welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we teach people how to experience love on purpose, not by chance. So we are being intentional about love, because after a while, it becomes habitual. So first, it's intentional. So you have to think about it. You have to be intentional. It's kind of like meditating. You have to remember to come back to your breath. Like you drifted and you started thinking about something. Remember to come back to your breath. So I'm teaching you, I'm teaching you how to be intentional about love. But if you consistently are intentional about love, it becomes being habitual about love, which is why I love you bringing me to this, because it is so habitual that sometimes I think things that I feel don't need to be said. So you force me to say it because it's automatically in there. So that's one of the dangerous things about knowing, is we assume that the person that we're talking to knows as well. So we kind of omit certain things that need to be shared. And I know that you'll pull it out of me, especially if I say it in a manner that the persons who are listening might not receive it correctly. I know, and I counted on you to be the one to ask me those open-ended questions to help me to simplify it even further so that they can walk away with the information. So excellent
Train
question.
up a child in the way they go, and then they get old. They won't depart.
Now, see, now check it though. Remember, I said that last show, like when you're in a relationship, it's like being with a child. Like you really need to break down what it is that you're saying, because typically as I stated on episode 2, I believe, you don't say what you think people know, or you don't say or ask about what you think you already know. So that's what prevents us from being effective communicators. But we got to close this show out because we are way past time. But that's that. Time goes by fast when you're having fun, and it definitely goes by fast when I'm teaching and having the opportunity to do so. I see people that have stayed on and have listened. You all are amazing. I see you, Mr. Mike Link, Jamel Isaac, Hassan Black, Miss Charity Ford. You had a lot of comments. I appreciate you. Isla, thank you so much for joining. Mr. Henry, you know, I always appreciate you being a part of the conversation. You've been great. I just appreciate your minds and time. As I stated at the end of every show, I appreciate you all's minds and time. I see hashtag 9 Mr. Henry. I will continue to be your servant so that I can empower you all like I empower my wife and family on how to experience love on purpose as opposed to haphazardly. It sucks. And that's why you don't want to even approach it, because it's like, I don't know how this is going to work out. Like, but if you're intentional about love, you can definitely be strategic about it, and in turn reap the rewards from your strategy. So I will continue to be your servant and provide you with any and everything revolving around love that I can, so that I can empower you to be empowered in this thing called love, because it's not hard. It's just difficult to get on the journey. But if I can just guide you and help you to see that we typically, I'll put it to you like this. If it's difficult from a standpoint of your experience, it's not love. It's not love. Love in its true form is so peaceful, and it does not have so much work to do with it. And it's typically what we do with it in our manipulation behind our actions and our insecurities that make love harder, because we have expectations behind our actions. And when they don't align, then we're disappointed, frustrated, and things of that nature. That's a whole nother story. I'm about to chase a rabbit, so I'm just going to put a period right there. I love you all. I can't stress that enough. I'll be talking to you all next Thursday. I don't know what the topic will be. I'll listen on this or look at the comments and see where that will take us on our next week journey. Again, the topic of discussion today was insecurities disguised as love gestures. You can see this show beginning of next week at the No Love Podcast YouTube channel. Of course, it will be uploaded on multiple podcast platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google has their place. There's so many places that you can see these. Go ahead and get caught up on the previous shows, either through a visual at YouTube, the No Love Podcast, or at the No Love Podcast on your respective podcast locations. So again, I appreciate your minds and time. I wish you all the best, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I love y'all. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.